Hi, Sam here, bringing you another tutorial on the modulation effects from Arturia. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at an effect that no modulation kit is complete without, the flanger. Let's take a look. We set out to find the greatest modulation effects in history. Among the recurring big hitters and A-list effects names was a lesser-known unit that was considered to be the best studio flanger ever made. The BF-20 was known not just for its warm, velvety sound, but for its huge versatility. Its complex studio sound became a go-to, used in sessions with the Rolling Stones, Phil Collins, Yes, and many, many more. Now we've recreated this amazing unit in virtual form for you to explore. Not only that, but we've expanded it with a set of enhancements that promise to take this effect to another level. Moving on to the BL-20's architecture, it starts off with a front panel that's based on the original hardware unit. Settings-wise, the drop-down menu available in the top left corner allows us to save, import and export presets, use the in-app tutorials, or resize the GUI. There's also an output trimmer at the bottom to help you adjust the output level of the effect. From the left to the right, you'll find an on-off switch for powering the unit, which also bypasses the processing, a stereo mode selector for choosing either stereo or mono left and right inputs, as well as the zero crossing mode. Hold up, what's that? Well, this mode inverts the polarity of the modulated signal and delays the dry signal by a tiny amount. Let's hear it in action. The zero crossing effect, if used on a typical pad sound, might result in a slightly grittier, almost bit crush-like sound with a resonating sweep at the end, with true cancellation of certain frequencies. Let's listen again. Hopefully it's a bit clearer now. Next to it, you can see the dry and wet ratio knob. This determines how much of the dry and wet signal you hear. The regen knob, on the other hand, has a slightly more drastic effect. Think of the feedback knob in our intensity reverb. This parameter kind of does the same thing, taking the dry signal and inputting it back into the signal path. Let's check it out. In this example, as you can hear, the sound has a more prominent, glassy quality. Bear in mind that different sounds and instruments will respond differently with BL-20. The next section features plenty of interesting mechanisms built to transform your sound. It consists of the 3 modulators that were also present in the original hardware unit. Here, you can pick which source of modulation you'd like to use: manual, envelope follower, and auto. The auto modulator is based on the original unit, with an additional rate knob that we've added to our emulation. Once you select it, you can tweak its 2 dedicated controls on the right side to experiment with how it affects your sound. These controls offer a typical LFO response. Rate determines the frequency of the modulation, how fast or slow it occurs, while the depth knob will define how much of the modulation is applied to the outputted signal. Let's listen again to both of these. The original waveform of the auto modulator is set to triangle, however we're offering a bit more. We'll come back to this in a second. The next modulation source is called manual. This one is pretty simple and does what it says. Once you select it, you can use its dedicated manual mix and max knob to set the modulation depth. Finally, we've got the envelope follower. This cool module might seem mysterious, but it's pretty straightforward. Its functionality is hidden in the name. The envelope follower is a special kind of modulation source that takes the envelope of the incoming signal, analyzes it, then recreates its shape to produce its own followed waveform. This is what modulates the incoming signal. You can activate it with a modulator selector. Once it's running, feel free to play around with its threshold setting. This determines the moment from which the envelope starts to follow the waveform of the sound source. Then, there's the decay parameter that defines the decay time of the followed envelope. On top of that, thanks to this switch, you can also bounce back between the external and internal envelope source. If set to external, it will behave like a sidechain function. While we're here, the front panel also has a feature called reverse sweep. This allows you to invert the sweeping on the right channel, which sounds like this. All of our effects feature advanced additional controls to enhance the character and versatility of these classic units. You can access it by clicking the two arrows in the top right corner. You'll see another rack mount style interface featuring plenty of cool extras. First off, we've given this beautiful effect a great sounding high pass filter. If you ever feel like your sound gets too muddy with the flanger effect, tweak the high pass filter until your signal is crystal clear. Like this. This function will be crucial for creating glitchy and metallic drum breaks. Moving on, the central part of the advanced panel provides probably the most unique modulation source of this device, the function generator. It acts as something between an envelope and an LFO. It can perform looped cycles and provides plenty of flexible waveform shapes. It's also super easy to use. All of this is possible because of the great waveform visualizer. This allows you to draw your own shapes, just like this. The drawing feature goes even further with square or ramp shapes, as well as locking your waveform points to the grid, or using preset shapes for loads of modulation variation, like this. You can also easily determine the rate and amount of the modulation applied. The rate knob can also be synced to the main tempo of your project. Once the source is set up, we can activate it by pushing the manual override button. This action will allow the function generator to replace the manual modulator on the front panel. The little FCT LED will indicate when the function generator is being applied. To hear it in action, make sure you select Manual in the Control Mode panel while increasing the function's amount knob with your desired rate and shape settings. Next up, Auto Shape offers additional LFO shapes to the auto modulator on the front panel. You've got the original triangle shape at the top, with the additions of sine, square, and 2 ramp waveforms to work with. Let's listen to each of them one by one. Triangle, the default. Sine. Square. Ramp 1. And ramp 2. The stereo offset produces constant negative and positive CV offset for the right channel, which alters the stereo image of the wet signal. You can achieve some really colourful alterations of the stereo field with this control. Okay, that's it for this video. We hope you'll enjoy the magic of Flanger BL-20 in your recording setup. Its classic features, complex sound, and enhanced set of controls make it a surprisingly powerful mixing and colouring tool, whether you're looking for traditional modulation or something a bit more outside the box. Check it out, and thanks for watching.